What's up, guys? In this episode of Toilet Talk, we sit down with Kristin from ClearBrook. They're a large environmental waste services company in New York, and we go over what it takes for a grease pumping business to go from starting to growing. We ask them about things that help them grow along their journey, and also some things you would want to avoid. Make sure you stick around to the end because we have a special guest that comes in and shares his knowledge about how grease pumpers can grow and explode their business. All right, let's jump right in. Kristin, can you tell us a little bit about ClearBrook? How long you guys have been around, what you specialize in, and where you're located?
Absolutely. ClearBrook, first off, we're located in Bayshore, New York. We service the island, the 5 boroughs. ClearBrook began in 2011, where we became part of a much larger company called Tully Construction, which had branched off and made Tully Environmental. They decided to start out with, we did have a solid waste facility for disposal. But with that, we had pump trucks, trailers, service vans for rotos and sewer jets. We did have a grease following. We have septic. We were doing residential at the time. A lot has changed since then, where we've spiraled out and we started getting into factor work, which, comes with the grease business. And we've gotten into a lot of other things, CCTV work, sonar work. We've done a lot. We've gotten into dredging. We've kind of gone all over the place, and, whatever gets thrown at us, we could do. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So the company's grown quite a bit over since you guys started.
Yes.
As people start a grease business and then they start to experience that growth, there are decisions along the way that some decisions may not help you grow, and then some decisions really help you take off. Were there any decisions along the way that really helped you guys get that next level?
Well, one thing I forgot to mention in our business lines, we have our own disposal facility where we process grease. We accept septic waste, leachate, and porta potty waste. And we actually cook our own grease here. So use cooking oil, brown grease. We have a facility that actually the building that I'm in right now that's the plant. So that definitely helped us, but there's a lot of investments that go into that. Lots of money, lots of equipment. Had to take into account buying more trucks, equipment, staff, of course, our programs to work with to make things a little bit easier. There was definitely lots of thoughts to go into expanding the business and making it easier for us, as well as opening up other revenue streams.
With that facility, there had to be a decision of like, okay, let's do this because there's going to be this new revenue stream. What were the indicators that pointed you in that direction?
Well, we previously were in a building where we had a solid waste facility, which was great for factor work. Outside vendors would come and dump at our facility, towns. And what happened was we ended up, we were renting the building and the facility, and an opportunity came up to buy a liquid facility. So we jumped on it, made the numbers work, moved the entire company over here. And, it's been really good, and we're expanding. So, looking forward to the future.
That's awesome. So I guess the moral story there is there's risk, but a calculated risk, because you already had run a solid waste facility and you're thinking that worked well. Let's move into a liquid waste one as well. So good move. When we think about, when people start out running a grease business, they'll likely take any customer they can get. But there comes a period of time where you start to get bigger and you really hone in on the sweet spot customer.
Yes.
What is that sweet spot customer for you guys?
Sweet spot customers. So, a little bit of our background, like I said, we were in residential that, it was a lot of work for a little reward. So right now we're kind of looking at quality over quantity. Customers that have chains, it's a consistent business, a little bit more work involved on the back end, paperwork and things like that. But just customers, getting out there with the sales guys and, explaining the business to them, and finding quality restaurants or businesses that have these consistent needs, especially regulatory agencies, especially around here, they require manifesting, saying that the material is going someplace and finding the people that want that. A lot of people don't care about, just get it and get it away. You know what I mean? And give me the lowest price. So finding customers that know the regulatory reasons why we do things and why pricing is the way why it is. Like I said, we've run into a lot of customers where, the guy's just charging them a low rate, but there's no way that they're taking the waste and moving it legally or, responsibly, with that type of a price structure. So explaining that to the customer, educating our customers, and then continuing that, and making sure we do the right thing for them. So we continue the servicing, and, it goes from there, referrals, recommendations. So.
So you had mentioned there that you have, sounds like some of your sales team is out there trying to find that quality over quantity, that sweet spot customer.
Yeah.
What are some of the tactics they use to land more of those types of customers?
For us on the island, a lot of the townships or municipalities require labeling, like for instance, with the used cooking oil, permitting each container that goes out. If you don't have a container or licensing to do business in the county, for instance, that's been a big sales tactic for us, because you can be fined for that, especially the restaurant, the vendor themselves. You have to be licensed within the county to do the servicing. So when we go into a new customer or a prospect, explaining that to them, we manifest everything. We have a facility that we are regulated, constantly with our county and state, explaining that everything gets manifested. So when it comes time to give your reporting requirements, we have everything ready to go, and we do have relationships with them. We know the routine, how it has to get done, how they like it. And we do a lot of the work for the customer as far as reporting. Send us the report, we'll get it over to the county. No problems, we'll CC you on everything. So, explaining that, and, just how the waste is transported, permitted, and handled. So.
It sounds like your sales team leads with education and create those relationships. Is that fair?
Yes. I just had Dave Galbraith walk in. The big guy walked in.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, how are you?
We have a special appearance on this.
We got a guest appearance.
Look at that.
So, definitely educating the customers is huge. Showing them manifest how it works. Cost structures, explaining to them as well. Disposal costs, we don't really get too much into that, but we do say to them, we are a facility and there's no way that could be happening. So.
Let's talk about the opposite. So there are certain types of customers. Again, when you're starting out, you'll take anyone. But as you get to a certain size and you want to try to grow in a profitable way, there's probably customers that you will say no to. Who are those customers? And then do you have any partners that you work with that you'll actually give those customers to?
Customers that we would say no to. Well, right off the bat, we don't do residential. So we do refer those types of clients to another company that we do work with, some of our transfer station customers. If it's an account that's, far out of the way that we don't really get into, there's a lot of stuff in the boroughs that, like, for very small types of jobs, like the interior grease traps, where they're only charging a lower amount. If we can't beat a price, the customer is eventually going to realize what type of service they're getting, and it's only a matter of time before we will get them back or get their business. We've had a lot of customers say, like, oh, this guy's going to charge us this amount. They're going to give us free service for a certain amount of time. And then it triples, or, and you try to explain that to a customer. And we've run into a few things where, the guy's going to give us service for a year free, but then it jumps up. And we're like, well, that doesn't really work out in the long run. I think those types of customers are only trying to ride that year out, so we'll let that slide. And, in a year, we'll probably get another call, or we set follow-ups to, like I said, if it's not feasible to us, we're not jumping on it just to do the work. There are times where we may, if we want to get into a certain area, we may go a little bit lower, or even with a contract, go a little bit lower to get into a certain area. Just for the long haul, to get in there and, start the relationship and go from there. Hopefully down the road, we can, build the relationship up enough that, or brings other opportunities in the area.
Sure. A couple of things you said there I wanted to follow up on. Did you make the decision to move away from residential because of just like profitability or time, what was the reason there?
Most of, the first beginning part of my time in this business was a lot of residential. And on the island, it's really, really tough. There's different parts. The South Shore is very sandy and, constantly filling up. The tides or the water, just the water levels are just out of control on the South Shore. So people are filling up constantly. And I felt like you become married to the customer. And residential, like I said, they don't want to be paying $2,000 every. The amount of time that goes into servicing them and continuing that, they could fill up very, very quickly. It just became, you're going back for, oh, I don't want to pay this because you were just here. But meanwhile, there's, 12 people living in the house on the South Shore where the tide cycles are very, very high. And, you're using the washing machine so much, and trying to explain that to people, it's just, they don't want to pay it. So for us, it was just not working. It was, we were going back, and it was just more of a hassle than it was any much of a profit. So yeah, decided to make that decision, commercial only. We do septic for commercial businesses, authorized industrial, grease, used cooking oil, and then, factor work and camera work for larger agencies.
Got it.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something else too, or a few times, about us having a sales team. Mm-hmm. At what point do you think a grease company, as they're starting to grow, like when would you add your first salesperson?
Well, usually you have a base clientele. You'll have a certain amount of people. When we're on our routing, we know certain areas we want to get into this, and we need somebody out there going out, checking the sites. I think at a certain time would be, he's going through his route within a certain amount of time, or he's not finishing throughout the month, and we want to grow that. We want a sales guy out there, getting the feet out there and knocking on doors and really seeing what's out there. Also, it's good for research too, finding out who's out there. Is there any new companies? it's salespeople are key. I do believe in that. We have inside and outside. So any people that may get our name, they can call in, and we have an inside salesperson as well as an outside guy that can either go check it out or, confirm what's needed and also find new places.
It's funny how often that question will come up where we meet with grease operators and they're always saying things like, I just don't know when I can pull the trigger and pay this person a salary and all those things that come along with it, commissions and whatnot.
That's always been a battle for us, finding out do we give them a book of business? Do we start out with that? And then commission wise, and the pay scales are always tough for us. But it's been working. We have right now we have one guy out, one person in. So for right now, that's good. We may add on down the road, but with our staff inside, it's been helpful and working okay. So
that's great.
Yeah.
You said something that's a perfect segue because you mentioned routing. So let's talk about route density. This comes up a lot where, how do you plan your routes to be the most profitable? And it's usually about route density. Can you talk about how you guys execute that?
So we route by the type of truck, obviously. If it's grease, we do set certain areas, territories that we have certain amount in Nassau in this one quadrant. We also have to take into account how many gallons are going to be on there, because then we have to factor in disposal sites, are they going to fill up? And of course, there's always those one-off type of things where we get there and they need more than 1,000 gallons for instance, and really throws off your day. So it takes some time. Routing has always been a hurdle for us. ServiceCore has helped us a lot with that, being able to see what's on the map, specifically for used cooking oil right now. So seeing on a map where everything is, we can hone in to certain areas, and then we can dig in deeper to the quantities and time frames. Grease is its own little beast because people don't want it in the middle of the day or when lunch starts, or they want it done early. Our guys start, some of them start at 3 a.m. Get out there, as long as it's not anywhere near a residential area, they can go and get that stuff done before anyone's open. So routing has always been a hurdle, but it's definitely just looking at the frequencies, the territories that we're going in. We try to put everything on a route. You can't get away from emergencies here and there. We do charge an emergency fee, especially for people who are not on a maintenance. Like if somebody calls in and you did not want to be on a maintenance schedule, you're going to be charged for us to reroute our driver now. You're taking him off of our route. So we try to prevent pulling our guys out as much as possible so that they can stay on their route. But yeah, we try to stay in certain territories on certain days of the week and build a route off of that.
Is there a time frame, like once a week, once a day, once a month, that you look at those routes that are more recurring and try to optimize them?
So the accounts that are on a weekly basis, we know them. That's going to be, that's going to have a set day when we're going to do it, and we're going to build around that. For the most part, we look at the month, and we could pull things as long as it's within a certain time frame. For the quarterly people or monthly, of course, we have to take into account, like if we just did it at the end of the month versus we don't want to do it the first of the month, in the beginning of the month. But we have a good customer base and memory of where we're going with that. So yeah, it's all by the territory and, trying to build off of that, especially like I said, if it was done at a certain time, we'll kind of start with one and build off of that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I want to segue to maybe helping our audience, people that are listening to this, avoid some mistakes that you guys may have seen since in your time, growing to the size that you're at. What are some of the pitfalls that grease operators should avoid as they go from like, I just started out and now I'm trying to scale this business? Are there things that you would recommend to avoid?
One of the biggest things, especially with restaurants, and we have a lot of restaurants, delis, small business owners, setting right off the bat the pricing and setting up COD structures or payment structures. That's always they go in and out very, very quickly. The turnaround rate on those type of places is quick. That's one of the biggest pet peeves when we send out an aging showing, a deli that owes us from 60 days, setting up your process right away is very, very important. Also, the beginning servicing of these customers. We've always tried to start off fresh, because a lot of these places do not, they haven't been maintained correctly. They only want to do, let's just start off with 1,000 gallons, but meanwhile their pipes are caked with grease and, or the grease trap is solid of, not being serviced for so long. So again, this comes back to educating customers about, you really want to start fresh because it's going to just cause problems down the road. And the hiring of drivers, making sure you have qualified guys doing the work. Training them is very important. I think that's right off the bat, your pricing structure, collections, and servicing. So
do you, because you can add customers and, like some of the mistakes you might make are pricing structure could make you not profitable or close to it. How did you guys think about pricing structure as you started to grow?
Pricing structure, there's the basics, disposal costs, the equipment cost, the staffing costs, and just overall overhead. You got to take a percentage of that and build your pricing on that, but also be competitive of what else is out there. So for us, our disposal rates are across the board. Everyone around here is the same for grease, septic, things like that. So what the playing field is. And then also we've had a few sales guys go out. They hear about customers, what they're paying now. And, you kind of do some research on it, anybody can do that in the back end. So just knowing what's out there and what your costs are.
And I imagine as you scale, those costs are going to go up. And, as you add more drivers and more equipment and things like that, is that part of the reason why you had to start saying no to some customers and look for that quality over quantity?
For us, it's not so much about our growth because no matter what the numbers are, what they are, if we keep on building the revenue, that's the only time we're going to bring on another pump guy. That's the only time we're going to buy a new piece. Okay, we need to buy a new piece of equipment or we need to add on more. If we get to that point where, okay, our revenue is showing, okay, we could take that money and invest it to create more revenue. All of our regular functions as far as disposal, the truck costs, like I said, that's pretty basic. So we know what our costs could be. The only time we would look at increasing that is if we were, if disposal costs went up, inflation, we've had that where fuel costs have gone up. Even at one time, we did have a fuel surcharge at one time. So there's different factors that come into play.
You mentioned revenue growth, and if you're seeing that, okay, we can make these decisions about hiring a new pump guy or adding new equipment. What cadence are you looking at or evaluating that? Is that a quarterly basis, an annual basis, or something else?
We do a monthly review. Every month we are looking at the numbers, where it's going, trying to trend out the year. And, of course, there is a quarterly, annual. So all of that is looked at regularly, just so that we can catch it in time. We don't want it going out too long. And then we're like, what is happening? So we are looking even throughout the month. Like, we just want to know where we're going, how we're doing. Of course, we have to report to, the owners. So everyone, and especially when it comes time to ask for a new truck or adding new employees or growing that division, we have to take all of that into consideration, because otherwise we'll just be showing negatives. So if we're not making money, we're not buying anything else or expanding. We're going to look deeper and find out what's going on. So,
I mean, I guess that's a key takeaway, is always evaluating your metrics, your business metrics. And probably in the beginning too, was there a time that you said, these are the metrics we're going to look at on this type of cadence? Do you have standard, and how have they developed over the years?
We do have lines of business that we are looking at through our billing, our revenue for this line of business. And then as well on the back end, our accounts payable. So if we're spending a ton of money fixing a truck, for instance, we may want to look at that and say, okay, are we getting enough money that would justify us buying something new instead of continuing to repair this truck? It's costing us more money than, buying a new one, paying a payment on it. So there's lots of different factors that come into play, and weighing out the options. Is it worth it or not? Do we just keep on fixing it? Do we, or do we just kind of, work with what we got? Or, lots of things to look at when it comes down to spending money and buying new things and growing.
Yeah, but constantly evaluating is the point here. So anyone listening to this, do it on a more frequent basis than you're comfortable with, because that's what runs your business.
Absolutely. Everyone, our entire company is pretty much based off of that. You got to look, are you guys going to make more money for us to put more money into? So, that's what it comes down to. We want to make sure we're always on the positive side. Of course you can't always be, but, as long as the trend is, on the upside.
Yes.
Yeah.
One, moving on to hopefully a more fun question here. Has there ever been an unusual or unique way that you guys have won business?
Unique way. I'm sorry, but Dave just made another appearance. Anything come to mind to you about unique ways to win business?
Take them to baseball games.
What, are we talking Mets or Yankees?
Dave's a Yankee guy.
Okay.
I would say that depending on the customer and the client, there are situations where, believe it or not, attending golf outings, political functions, being involved in networking, all of those things can contribute to, let's just say at a senior level, you're kind of in those areas with decision makers. So, the ability to be part of that is important. I mean, whether or not you like to play golf or baseball, or, it doesn't necessarily need to be a sports related item, but certainly being involved in networks. It could be even other salespeople. And that's one of the things that we found also for the success is become partners with a company like Cisco. Meet the sales guy from Cisco, take him out to lunch. And, Cisco is supplying, food, restaurants, thousands across the nation. You team up with the salesman, and then what you do is you work off
networking.
So if you see a new restaurant that's being built, or a new pizza place that's going up, you notify him. He goes in and solicits that account for the Cisco business, and vice versa. So next thing you know, you've got multiple people working for you, just because of the connection, and it costs you a lunch or it costs you a dinner.
On the grease side, it's funny because just recently my nephew had his communion, and we were at a restaurant and ran into the head chef, just talking to people, just getting out there and networking and talking, but literally at the bar, talking to a gentleman, and he winds up being the head chef for the Long Island Ducks Stadium. So, you never know where your next lead may come from. It's, you never know who you're talking to.
Yeah, I think that's great advice for both of you. But Dave, what you're saying about the networking aspect of it, are there, like we've heard from other customers about, Rotary clubs and, your local XYZ. Are there, like, if you were to suggest another grease operator join their local club, is there one that stands out over others?
Restaurant Association.
Yeah, the Restaurant Association. That's an easy one.
The Restaurant Association.
Chamber of Commerce. We've had a few town Chamber of Commerces that we've joined, and places that have large amounts of restaurants on a strip, villages and things like that. So definitely getting involved with different groups. Definitely
Great.
beneficial.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you for that. So if you were starting out today and you had to do it all over again, how would you get your first 50 grease customers?
Well, first off, if I was doing it all over again, I'd become a lawyer.
Starting all over. Yeah, I would have to say you'd have to get out there and hit anybody that you know personally. If you know restaurants that you frequent, getting the word out there and marketing yourself and doing the right thing for them. Explaining everything like we discussed, showing that you can service them the way that they need to be, when they need it, be there for them whenever they need it.
I also think that, starting over, in our situation here, we were fortunate enough to where we came in and acquired an existing
book of business. Yeah.
But if I was to be the owner operator that had decided I wanted to get into this business, or I may be in it already, but I'm not servicing grease traps and food service industry, and I wanted to get into that, I would suggest that you sit down and you make sure that it's number one, it's going to be something that's going to be a good fit for your present operation. And then if in fact that is, then I would make sure that you understand what the mission statement is. And from there, put your strategic game plan together. What is your area that you want to work in first and foremost? And then how do you want to build that density? Routing is really where all the profit is made. It also gives you the ability to be able to have what I would call a more controlled pricing structure. So I can give let's just call it a deeper discount to a customer that's only 2 blocks away from me than I can who's maybe 55 miles away from me. So I think the organic growth, and there's really two sides to that, Matt. You can have the organic growth where you're out there and you're doing what we just briefly discussed. Or if you do have financial backing and you want to get into that market, you can start to look around at other smaller operators that, maybe operate at 150 accounts level, so forth and so on, and look to go in and do acquisitions and have a faster, quicker growth. However, with that, you also have to keep in mind that you're going to inherit all of their bad habits and bad pricing. So, there's a risk, there's a definite risk and reward on that. Faster growth, depending on where you want to be.
Different hurdles.
Yeah, and it's a different mindset. It's a total different game. But, I think those are the two different ways that you would want to look at that from a start-off position.
Yeah.
I think that's great advice. If there is, anything else that you would like our audience to hear, and a lot of the people that are being watching this are grease operators that they have their business up and running, but they're looking to scale. What advice would you like to leave them with?
Continue to get up every morning and answer the phone and work 7 days a week. And most importantly, I will say, hire really good people and surround yourself with the good people, and focus on the route density. This business is only profitable through route density, and then of course your pricing structure. So making sure that you have that all in line, and then of course the personnel and the equipment to support that. The upkeep of equipment is imperative. And just stay on top of your business.
Yeah.
I think any business owner out there right now that's probably watching this, does all of that and has all of that. But that's the most important thing, is to continue to, work hard and smart.
Well, I think they'll be able to take away some really good pearls from our discussion today. So I want to thank you, Kristin, and thank you, Dave, for making a guest appearance.
Yeah. I'm sorry to jump
It's
in.
getting close to lunchtime.
Yeah.
Dave's here when lunch is going to be coming out soon.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for buying all of us that are watching this lunch. Just joking. But just really wanted to say thank you. You guys shared your wisdom, and we will see you on the next one.